Welcome to COMM 2025, the Fundamentals of Communication. I'm Dr. Rick Merritt. In this picture, I am the shorter one. Actually, in most pictures, I'm the shorter one. In this video, we're going to go over the first chapter of the text. It's also the first chapter in a section called Foundations of Communication. These chapters in this section cover the basics or foundations of how we communicate. Today we're going to look at a model of communication, discuss various components of communication, and I hope along the way you'll find yourself saying, yeah, I do that, or I know someone who acts just like that. Let's jump in. In this chapter, there is a concept of canned plans. These are mental libraries that contain scripts for specific situations. When you're in an interview, you know how to respond to the question, tell us about yourself. You don't start at your birth and relive each year until you're up to current day. You explain your educational and professional background because that's what the script calls for in this situation. Let's move on to communication contexts. In this picture, it appears that the physical context is a classroom and the social context is the professor with students. Since it appears the people are all getting along, the historical context may be collaborative. Psychologically, there may be some stress if someone's not understanding what's being discussed. Culturally, we see a mix of individuals from different cultural backgrounds, and that adds to what's going on in the discussion. Now we have communication settings. This includes intrapersonal communication. This is where we talk to ourselves. We all do it. In speech classes, we may do a great deal of it because we may have some anxiety about giving those speeches. According to an article titled, How Negative is Your Mental Chatter, published in Psychology Today, it is noted that even though people claim to hold themselves in high regard, the thoughts that they spontaneously occur to them, their mental chatter, so to speak, is mostly up to 70% negative. A phenomenon that could be referred to as negativity dominance. So watch what you say to yourself for a few days and see if you can't turn that number around. The next type of communication setting is interpersonal or talking to someone else. We do it face to face and we do it a great deal. And it is interpersonal even if we happen to be on the phone. Next we have small groups. Small group settings are typical of the way we live our lives. We begin these types of communications when we're very young and continue them throughout our lives. Public speaking, everybody's favorite, is another communication setting, as is mass communication, which includes the traditional radio, television, print media, and now includes all of our online ventures in which we broadcast messages to groups of friends. Let's move on to the communication model. This is the model from the text. This model includes participants. These are the people involved in the communication, and they act as both senders and receivers. Thus, they are using multiple channels. We use visual channels along with our auditory channels in a face-to-face communication setting. As this is happening, we have noise. The noise can be internal. What a great person, or what a jerk. Or external, other people in the room, phones ringing, a thunderstorm raging. You get the picture. Finally, all of this occurs within a context. It could be a classroom or ordering dinner on a first date. This model applies to all communication from face-to-face to the mediated communication we take part in today. Now let's look at some characteristics of communication. First, communication has purpose. As this sign suggests, communication has a direction. It can be to develop our own sense of self. It can be to meet social needs. We need contact with other people. We use communication to develop and maintain relationships. Just to note, the maintenance of relationships is often much more difficult than the development of relationships. We exchange information. This is done via reading, direct communication, or videos like this one. Finally, we communicate to influence others. You will be doing that when you present your persuasive speeches. We also do that when we don't really want to see that new Star Trek movie by ourselves, so we try to persuade someone to tag along with us. The next characteristic I want to mention is that communication is continuous. Like this stream, it's constantly in motion, as is communication. When we walk into a store, we communicate something. We communicate possibly that we want to buy something, or, hey, I'm just looking. As the text notes, we shiver when we're cold, we show when we're bored, or happy, or confused. Most often, we do this without saying a single word. Nonverbal language is powerful, as we will see in a future lesson. The last characteristic I want to visit is that communication is irreversible. When I was a kid, I know that when someone said something mean to another kid, we'd say, "Take it back." As adults, we learned you can't take it back. Of course, now we have social media that really drives home the fact you can't take it back. There are people losing jobs because of a post or a tweet from several years ago. Employers routinely look at social media before hiring. Thus, communication is indeed irreversible. Moving on to ethical communication. We should all strive to communicate ethically. Ethical communication includes bright side and dark side messages. For example, if a friend asks you if you think they can be a cardiologist and you, in your heart, pun intended, believe that he does not have the ability, you have four choices. The first is the bright side response. In this case, you say medical school is very hard and demanding, and you're a good student. However, you may want to do some exploring to make sure it's truly for you. That's both ethical and appropriate, and it's both honest and respectful. Next, we get into the early dark side response. You can do anything you set your mind to. This is a bit dishonest, but it doesn't hurt your friend's feelings. Now we get into the hard dark side response. Dude, you're a good student, but you struggle in science and med school is a bunch of science. You really may want to try something else. This response is honest, but it could hurt feelings and damage the relationship. Finally, we have the evil dark side response. An idiot like you? In medical school? That'll be the day. This response is unethical and inappropriate. It's hurtful and damaging to feelings and your relationships. Now let's look at a few ways you can improve your communication competence. One of the main areas where we lack confidence is in public speaking. One way to improve our communication competence in this area is to consider your own self-talk. Remember, 70% of what we tell ourselves is negative. Now I'm going to want you to write this down, preferably on 2 3x5 cards, but any piece of paper will do. Pause the video if you need to, but go and get the paper and prepare to write something down. Okay, everybody's back. Here's what I want you to write. I am a well-prepared and confident public speaker. Now you're looking at the screen like, I have just said something that is really not true. It may not be true yet. If you keep repeating this, you will work on the speech, you will find sources, you will find time to practice, and people who want to help you be successful. Things will come to you. They were already there, but now you're actually seeing them. You'll end up giving a very good speech. It may not be comfortable, but it will be a completed speech. And when you finish, you will feel like this. Do this activity today. Now that's it for this video. Remember, read the chapter, do the discussions and the quizzes. Start thinking about speech topics, and I will see you online. Until next time, this is Dr. Rick Merritt, signing off.